So we're getting off of the craziness that was round one of the 2021 footy season, and we carry on to another real exciting round two with a lot of stuff going down on the field and off the field as well, because we're getting a little bit worried. Maybe in certain areas of Australia, we're not going to get the whole 100% by Anzac Day, but in most parts, hey, fingers crossed, we should be good. But Coach Johnny Hess, AFL correspondent, how you feeling after round two of this footy?
Oh, it depends on what colors you're wearing is how happy you are today, how much beer you want to drink, how crazy you think this season is going to go. There's so many different reactions from a couple of teams that are 2-0
Mm-hmm.
to a couple of teams that are 0-2 that I think a lot of people are going, didn't see that one coming.
I think there's one in specific because if you listened to last week's show, thank you so much for listening. If you're new, welcome aboard. We're more than happy to have you. But we're talking that it was all but 6 teams since like 2014 that have gone started the season off 0-2 have failed to make the finals. So that's why Geelong and Brisbane was such a huge game, and a little bit of controversy in that, just a hint of that. So I can't wait to break into that one. But 5 teams are already all but eliminated from finals contention. If we're going off the stat, you got North Melbourne, shocker. Essendon, huge shocker there. GWS and Carlton, yeah, you can make the argument that they maybe should be 1-1. And then you got the Brisbane Lions that are 0-2 already, and it's time to hit the panic button. But it's time to get into things, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to break down everything you need to know from round two. We're going to give you at least my round three power rankings, and then we're going to go into our round three tips for next week. So, I'm your host, Ross Allen, joined alongside by AFL correspondent Coach Donnie Hess. And unless you're wearing orange and gray, you're probably feeling pretty good right now. Maybe unless you're a Brisbane fan. And the only orange gray that really matters right now is the ones on this show's logo. But coach, let's talk about the first things first before we get into round two itself. A little bit of COVID. Was it COVID? COVID controversy? COVID? I don't know. There's nothing like rolling with the alliteration right now. Oh, with the COVID catastrophe. There we go.
Pretty
Let's
much.
talk about that.
Oh boy. So for those of you that have not caught it for the states, a
Yeah,
tiny
caught
bit.
it. That's a good one. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Ugh.
You got to find ways to get it in. Basically what ended up happening is there was a confirmed case in Brisbane just before the start of this round, and it actually caused a few fun times in the Friday night game between Geelong and Brisbane, where two of the special callers or color guys is to use the vernacular here in the States, is basically two of the color guys had to go home because they were told that if you had visited Brisbane or had been in Brisbane from this date to this date, you must go home, isolate, and get tested. Two of the color commentators for the Friday night game ended up having to go home because one lives in Brisbane and the other one had been to Brisbane in the last week.
Mm.
So it really kind of threw the call for Friday night's game between Geelong and Brisbane absolutely nuts. There were supporters that had to go home because there are supporters that had been in Brisbane or from Brisbane. So it was almost kind of this insane 45 minutes where it was like you could tell there was almost panic amongst not only the callers but some of the fans. And I mean, it got to the point the boundary girl, Abby Holmes, the boundary girl, had to come up and do special comments for the rest of the game because they had nobody else. They just had the two main callers,
Well, I guess it's a good thing for
Bristol.
Geelong. You get a little more of a home field advantage with the Brisbane fans getting kicked out.
Well, they didn't get kicked out, but they were highly encouraged to go home,
Okay.
find a hotel,
Highly
isolate,
encouraged.
and it didn't exactly roll out a ton of people. I know that there are some Victorian Brisbane Lions fans, but it was just this eerie 45 minutes to an hour where everybody was like, oh, this could get interesting. Now, thankfully, in the last few days, there's only been 4 confirmed cases. They think they've got it nipped in the butt. Um, all the Brisbane Lions have tested negative. The Brisbane Lions women's team has even all tested negative. All the coaching staffs, everything. So they believe they're fine. The only thing is not only has this affected Brisbane, But because of the fact that there's four and they think the entire Brisbane area is potentially an issue, even fellow Queensland team Gold Coast has now vacated the state. They have went to Adelaide since their game is in Adelaide this week. So both Brisbane and Gold Coast, who last year in Queensland hosted the entire comp, now those two teams will relocate for at least a couple of weeks. We're hoping that that's it. They're hoping that they can get them back in that second or third week of April back into Queensland, granted that their 3-day lockdown and everything kind of goes through. Now, this is a little bit more of political talk more than footy. It's just kind of the way it went, but it really affects the games because it now makes this week's game between Collingwood and Brisbane now a home game for Collingwood, which an 0-2 Brisbane team, that's not a gift.
No,
that really isn't a gift. We'll talk about how Collingwood did against Carlton here in just a little bit, but it is not a gift for these Queensland teams now that they are going to be on the road for at least the next couple of weeks. So it's going to throw some fixtures off. The Sydney Swans were even affected since they played Brisbane that first week of the season, and that's in the targeted date period.
So weird.
For it, that they're even isolating. The Swans have been isolated. They've been given extension. They've been given special exceptions to be able to train. They're supposed to go to Victoria and play the Tigers. So they're going to be tested up the yin yang until that game on Friday night, which could be quite interesting. So it's not only affecting the two Queensland teams, but it's affecting Collingwood. And now it's affecting the Sydney Swans. So it'll definitely be quite interesting to see how, hopefully that it's only 4 cases that get taken care of with this quick snap lockdown, and we won't have too much interrupted footy.
Nope. Well, yeah, that was the elephant in the room. Had to get that out of the way. But with that out of the way now, Diane, like I said, it's time to have some fun. And it's time to talk some real footy and get down to the nitty gritty. And we're going to start things off with Carlton versus Collingwood. Final score 13-7-85 for Carlton, 16-10-106 for Collingwood. And it was Collingwood keeping a good lead throughout the entire game. I mean, especially the game started with Jordan kicking an early goal, and they just kind of kept it from there with that goal 3 minutes into the game. He would go on to actually finish with 4 goals. He would be a part of 12 scores, and he was a huge part of that Collingwood offense. And it's that defense. I mean, what the first thing you think about when you think Collingwood, besides the greatest AFL player in the world, Mason Cox. Besides that, you think about defense, and Collingwood was able to lead tackles, hit outs, contested possessions, and they forced more turnovers. And now it's Carlton dropping to 0-2 after playing 2 really good teams in Richmond and in Collingwood. And the problem here is that their huge problem with Richmond, and the Richmond team that really eats up, it's turnovers. Richmond thrives on turnovers. And then Collingwood, a great defensive team, they force turnovers. That's been a huge problem for Carlton the first couple rounds. They're going to have to fix that in round 3 and moving forward if they want to have any sort of success this season.
Completely agree with you. I mean, this Carlton team, unfortunately, they are just a dumpster fire right now. They cannot defend. Yeah. They let a Collingwood team that had trouble scoring against an okay defensive team in the Western Bulldogs, and they just lit them up. Jordan DeGoey with a great game. Mason Cox had a really good game.
Cox always has a really good game.
The return of the Balded Wonders, Steel Side Bottom, which one of the best names in all of footy. I absolutely love Steel Side Bottom. He comes back. Pendlebury is so smooth. Just Collingwood stars played the absolute best game they could possibly play, and at the worst possible time for Carlton. They're injury riddled. Unfortunately, they escape out of this game with 2 more injuries. So it's this Carlton team. I mean, almost as bad as Brisbane. I mean, there's a lot of people in Carlton panicking a little bit because this is a team that if you look at Carlton's schedule, I mean, it's not much easier. I mean, you literally, there is no easy game in their first 6 or 7. I mean, they literally, if I look at it, see if I can pull it up here real quick. Carlton's next 3 games are Freo, Gold Coast, Port, Brisbane, and Essendon.
Ooh.
I mean,
I don't think that's the easiest stretch of footy one of these teams could have.
Oh no, not Gold Coast, Port, Brisbane in a 3-week span after you get Freo this week. I mean, I hate saying it, but I agree with what some of the experts. I mean, this Carlton team could be 0-6 after 6 weeks. I mean, that's how devastating this start of this season is going. It could be. So it's going to be quite an interesting little run for them here. So I don't know, Blue Baggers. I'm hoping you can maybe steal one from the Frio Dockers this week to get some positive momentum, because your next set of games are not looking real positive for you, for the chance to get that first win of the season.
Yep, and we'll give our predictions on that later in the show once we get to our tips. Now, arguably the most important game of the week, of the round, considering the fact of what 0-2 is and how that's so damning to a team historically and statistically. We had Geelong versus Brisbane, and would you believe it? Geelong pulls it out by 1 point in this one, 12-9, 81 for them, 11-14, 80 for the Lions. And it's a huge game that ends with wild controversy. And it's the AFL even admitting they were wrong because they essentially stole a game from Brisbane. I mean, they should have had that easy. Unless they completely whiff on that kick, they're winning this game with the easy free kick that they should have had.
Oh yeah, I mean Mark Blitzos picks up the footy about less than 2 meters from the goal line,
Yep.
just over off and outside the goalpost.
This is all
And
less than 20 seconds to go in the game.
oh yeah, gets wrapped up, drops the ball, no handball, no nothing. So at the minimum, it's an illegal disposal because he doesn't dispose of it correctly. But he also had a chance to dispose of it by handballing it up the line to a fellow Cats player. Didn't do it, gets tackled. Uh, I'm I'm sorry, Geelong fans that want to say, well, it isn't called sometimes. Well, that one should be called. That one's darn near one of the most obvious holding the ball calls you can find in footy.
Oh,
He
man.
had a chance to get rid of it. He didn't. He dropped the ball. Holding the ball, illegal disposal. Something needs to be called. The referee. I understand it's late in the game. Okay, I really do. You don't want the referees to make a call that's going to affect the outcome, but that is one of those where the opposite is the same. You don't want the referees not calling a call
Mm-hmm.
that will affect the game. So,
Mm-hmm.
it is a two-sided, it is a double-edged sword there, because if you don't call it, this is what happens. Geelong wins by 1 in a game that really, if you make that call, Brisbane probably wins this one by 5.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing, because that's 4 points Brisbane cannot get back.
The
And I
thing is,
know,
if you want to play devil's advocate, Donnie, if I want to do that and make some Brisbane fans hate me, how about I just say, oh, you kicked 3 more behinds and you did goals. Just turn one of those into goals and you would have been fine.
this is
But
very true.
but we all know this should have been one. But it was the game itself though was a really good game. I don't want this ending to
Mm-hmm.
really take away from it. In my opinion, it was the second best in terms of actual competition, the second best game of the round. We'll get to my favorite a little later on. It was one of the more later games, but as Geelong, they got to a good start. Is Brisbane slowly working their way back into the game in this one, and they were there. They almost had it, and then yeah, Tom Hawkins for the Cats. He's builds off from he's good round one into even better round two. Finished with 3 goals, 4 behinds, 17 disposals. And the question I have to ask for you, Donnie, we keep on alluding to the stat. Is it over for Brisbane? Do they have a chance to make the finals this year, or is it just is it over? Is it over?
I never say it's over. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking to a Swans fan that in 2017 the Swans went 0-6 and still found a way into the finals. So it's
Huge
possible.
anomaly, but it's
I
possible.
know again, but it's the wild card, and it's 2021. It's like
Mm-hmm.
2020. You just don't know. I hate saying that they're out of it. I really do, because
Mm-hmm.
this Brisbane team has so much talent. But I don't know. Like, I hesitate to do that.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
unfortunately their run isn't much easier than Carlton's. So
No.
I would almost, I hate saying it, this week is kind of another one of those where it's like it's a prove it game.
Mm-hmm.
Brisbane finds a way to win this game at Marvel, they're right back in it. I think they get the positive mojo. They can bond a little bit since they're away from home, since they're not going to be in Queensland for a few weeks. But you lose this game to Carlton, you better lose it close, and you better be competitive, because if you get smoked by Collingwood,
Hmm.
the questions get more and more. Did this team get ahead of itself? Was the last couple of years kind of a benefit? Did they benefit from people not taking them seriously?
Hmm.
And then they got some wins they probably didn't deserve. I mean, I hate to jump into that realm, but I mean, you lose this one to Collingwood, the questions start coming out even more than I think probably should be necessary. But I mean, I look at we'll pull it up real quick on
Well,
this.
you got Collingwood,
Their
then
their next their
then Brisbane, or then you
next
got the
three their
Bulldogs.
next three is quite
Yeah.
interesting. So we get Collingwood this week,
Yep.
then the Western Bulldogs.
Which is a buzzsaw right now of a team.
Exactly. And then
Yes, it
then
did.
you should have your win. The Essendon Bombers should be your win, and then your fellow fun team, the Carlton Blues, followed by Port. So, and unfortunately, I look at it is, you don't win this one against Collingwood, I can almost guarantee you're probably not going to beat the Doggies. You should beat Essendon. I believe at this present point you should be Carlton. You're heading through the first 5 weeks, 2 and 3,
Yeah.
with Port, Frio, Gold Coast as your
An
next
almost
three after that.
underrated Gold Coast team as well.
A Gold Coast team that I think they're going to be tricky. They're going to be tricky to beat, because they've shown they're going to come and play. So I hate saying it, but this is a game Brisbane needs to win. If Brisbane does not win this, their road becomes much harder to make the finals with the little run that they have there for bet. So I hate saying must wins in the third week of the season, but this could be a Brisbane must win here.
Well, if you hate saying that, Donnie, that's what you had me here for. In round three, it is absolutely a must win against Collingwood. Otherwise, it's all but over. The fat lady might be singing at the end of round three for Brisbane, but we will get there eventually. Now, the next game that we have going on, I'm sure, Donnie, you're going to have a great time talking about this one, because we had the two 1-0 teams, the former Wooden Spoon. They had Sydney getting a huge win over Brisbane, yeah, in round one. Two 1-0 teams. We didn't really think these both, either one of these teams was going to be 1-0, let alone both of them being 1-0 after round one. And then you had Sydney going in and making a statement against this Adelaide team. Sydney taking this 18-13, 121 to 11-22, 88. It's Sydney remaining undefeated with another remarkable showing. And how about that return of Big Buddy Franklin with 3 goals, a couple behinds in his returns, and the kid. Let's throw in the kid to the stat line too. So congrats to his family. That's amazing stuff. And it's Adelaide being awfully wasteful. If you heard me going through the points, 22 behinds just to 11 goals. I mean, they had 29 free kicks. You had 55 inside 50s. That results in 22 behinds, and that absolutely costs you the game in this one. If they're able to convert, who knows? It's at least closer. It's at least a closer game. It's not like this 30 plus point blowout. You might
I
win.
mean, this was a game. This was a game that you look at it as a Swans fan. If you just look at the Swans' performance, you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at that scorecard, you go, "Ooh, we might have dodged one a little bit,"
Yeah.
because Taylor Walker has a great game. I think he kicks 5 or 6 in that game. He
Took
looked
five.
absolutely un
Or sorry, six. It
unguardable.
was six
Oh
is
yeah.
round five last round.
Yep. Unguardable. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
was so difficult. He kicked 3 of their first 5 goals of the game. So it was absolutely almost unguardable at times. But Sydney just Buddy has a great game. Logan McDonald, the young boy, which I got to say, this is seeing Logan McDonald and Buddy Franklin in the same forward line at the same time, both playing well and playing together. There was one point Logan McDonald had the ball, or Buddy had the ball and could have clearly shot for goal, and he handballs it to Logan McDonald to kick a goal. Or no, it was the other way around. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Logan McDonald has it, and he has a chance to go for it himself, but
Mm-hmm.
he handballs it to Buddy Franklin and it for the goal to be kicked. So it's like, to see those two big forwards playing well together was so much fun for the Swans fans. But there was
Fun
a
for the
little
Swans
part of
fans.
me,
Scary for every other team in the AFL.
yeah, and it was kind of crazy, because Errol Goulden has a great game. Errol Goulden has a great game. McDonald has a great game. Braden Campbell has a great game. It becomes The second consecutive week, the Swans get the Rising Star with Braden Campbell winning. So we're 2 for 2. So it's kind of there's a joke running around in several Swans groups that I'm in, is that Logan McDonald needs to get the. So then we have all three of the first three Rising Stars, but we won't go there. We won't go there yet. It will not be an easy test this week. We'll discuss that later. But I there is a part of me that looks at it and goes, ooh, Adelaide really kind of they kind of helped Sydney win this game. It was almost Sydney didn't win it. I think Adelaide more lost it than anything because
Adelaide's an absolutely scary team.
oh yeah,
Especially, like, I'm glad you brought up Taylor Walker because I got to ask you, Donnie, just like this. Right now, as we stand going to round 3, is Taylor Walker the Brownlow medal favorite with his AFL leading 11 goals? Second place is all the way is the Tigers Jack Rebo with 8. He's been playing fantastic footy through the first 2 rounds. Is he the man to beat as we stand?
Coleman medal, yes. Like Coleman medal, he's off to a flyer. But you never know. I hate jumping to conclusions. That medal is so difficult to win. It is more of a midfielder's medal. I'm not going to rule out Lachie Neal because he's not on a team that has a guy that's really going to take a ton of votes off of him.
Exactly.
And if Brisbane gets going, Lachie Neal's going to wrap up 3-3-3-2-3-3-3-2. He's going to do it.
Of course.
I mean, there was one time in the Brownlow count last year where he had at least 2 votes in 8 straight games. That's not easy to do. Right now, honestly, if you had to say who's your Brownlow favorite now, it's Dusty Martin because in the first 2 weeks he's been absolutely unstoppable. But we'll talk about Richmond a little bit later, but I don't like talking about the Brownlow medal because if you look back, if you look a year ago today, the Brownlow medal favorite was Matty Rowell, and Matty Rowell tears his shoulder in Geelong 2 weeks later. So it's kind of one of those where I don't like diving into that type of stuff. Taylor Walker right now, he has a flyer for the Coleman medal, but you just never know. One hamstring injury and he's out 4 weeks, and it could all change.
That's a crazy thing, right?
But he's the new man on the mark rule has really helped the leading forward. Ben Dixon at Port Adelaide, Taylor Walker, Buddy Franklin if he wants to. Some of these really big Ben Brown if he comes back from Melbourne with his knee injury, they're going to benefit from this new rule because there's so many leading lanes because the game is more open because teams aren't allowed or aren't able to set up their defensive structures the way they used to. That's why scoring seems like it's a little bit up, which is for some people is a great thing. I think it does get a little frustrating because it does make it to where it's like goal. So it does get a little frustrating, but I have seen some of these games now get to the point where it's kick mark, which is a little bit more like last year, which is kind of nice to kind of let me have a goal break here occasionally. So, but no, in all, the Swans played really, really well. I was really happy for that. And I'm on the edge of my seat for who they play this week. We'll discuss that later because I think that could potentially be the game of the round this round.
Now, the next game is something that was not nearly as competitive as this last one between Sydney and Adelaide because what we have here, we have Port Adelaide against Essendon. And here we go, Donnie. Here's the full, in-depth, high-level analysis for this game. Good team beats bad team. That's about that's as simple as we're going to give it to you because I mean it's been real nice of the AFL to give these 2 absolute gimme games to the 2020s ladder leader. Okay, come on, man. North Melbourne and Essendon. What are we doing here? It's a firepower Charlie Dixon. You know the BA midfielders. Way too much for the Bombers. A hard gust of wind is too hard for these Bombers right now. I'm sorry, Bombers fans. It's just not a good year for you guys. Charlie Wyans, fantastic game. He led to a lot of Port Adelaide's success in this one with his 38 disposals, which he led the game in, and his 17 contested marks to go alongside that. Do we really need to say anything else about this?
Not really. The thing that really kind of dampens this one even more is that Essendon had three of their better players go out with injury. So if you think their performance was not so good now, imagine this week when when the three of their better stars are actually out with injury this week. So unfortunately, it's when it rains it pours. Unfortunately, on these Bombers that they just this poor team is just so good. They're definitely with Richmond as the
Hmm.
flag favorites, and we'll have to see. I mean, a couple of weeks from now, it could be quite interesting saying who's our flag favorites and who's not, because a couple of teams who I thought were potential flag favorites in Geelong and Brisbane are not playing well,
Nope.
and teams I wasn't expecting. I mean, yes, Adelaide lost, but Adelaide still played pretty well against Sydney. So
Of
I mean,
course.
I'm not going to rule Adelaide as a potential finals team right now. I mean, we got several weeks to go. So
Imagine
yeah.
that. Adelaide in the finals, 1 year being removed from the wooden spoon. Wouldn't you just love to see it? And then I mean, with all these teams I bash on, it's not the personal. Like I truly feel for these Essendon fans because they have a little bit of a rebuild going for them. At least we can all suffer together. Because GWS, while though not that bad, they're still pretty bad itself. So I'm right there with you and the rest of the people in the basement of the league right now. So we're doing well. And then Port Adelaide that finally get their first real test in round three as they will be facing off against the West Coast. And we'll, of course, get to that in our tipping. Moving on to our next one, it is St. Kilda versus the Melbourne Demons. And this was a solid game by Melbourne. I don't know if a lot of people were expecting this kind of from them the first couple rounds of the season because St. Kilda 11-7-73 from Melbourne. We had 12-19-91, a team with a lot of behinds, and this could have been another one of those games. This is going to be a bit of a pattern through this round as well. It seemed like it could have been a lot worse for the Saints as the Demons they remain undefeated. And it was St. Kilda they gained a decent lead halfway through the second quarter, and then after that it seemed maybe not a stat line as they were all finished pretty even, but in terms of the way the game was being played, it seemed just almost like it was entirely Melbourne footy after that point halfway through the second. And that showed on the scoreboard with this, as you had Clayton Oliver leading the way again for the Demons with 37 disposals, 21 contested possessions, and that's one of my more favorite stats actually recently. I love if these guys are able to go on play some dirty football and be able to get those contested marks because those are crucial. And I just love the grit. You know, like with American football, I love an old fashioned ground and pound team, the teams that just like to beat up. I like seeing these contested possessions. Donnie, your thoughts on this one?
This is a game where it's like if you would have asked me before the season started who would have picked, I would have picked St. Kilda without a doubt. But
Without
St.
a doubt.
Kilda is
Yeah.
injury riddled so badly, and this Melbourne team they've taken on this underdog chip on the shoulder type of atmosphere, because I think a lot of people when Ben Brown went down, everybody
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, Melbourne's they're DOA. They're dead
Yep.
on arrival.
Yep.
There's no way they can score. They don't have the goal scoring. They don't have the talent. They're a team that's inconsistent, and they've kind of come out and they've just kind of played gritty, tough. I mean, hard nosed football. And then you uncover a gem in Keziah Pickett, who looks to be another one like Liam Ryan from the West Coast, that he's
Mm-hmm.
going to fly for things. He wants to take crazy marks. He's an absolute animal athletically, that it's like he's kind of stepped in and really given a focal point for this Melbourne Demons team in the D's. I mean, I, I pulled up the ladder just a little bit ago. I mean, how many people would have thought after two rounds
Come on.
that Sydney and Melbourne are in the eight
Yep.
right now? I mean, you would have
They're
asked
not.
most people at the
Donnie,
start of
Donnie,
the
you're selling me
season.
short. They're not in the eight. They're in the top four.
Exactly.
They're in the top four. Come on.
Tampering expectations here, okay? No, but like I said, you'd have asked most people, they'd have said, yeah, they'd have been in the eight, the bottom eight, and that's kind of been that. It's kind of the thing that I think that this season again, it's like last year. It's like as soon as you think you have everything figured out, something changes, something's different. So um it's going to keep progressing. I like the way the D's are playing football. They're going
Mhm.
to be a tough out. They're going to get healthier. Ben Brown, they're hoping to get back before the end of the season, and if they get him back, they're going to be even scarier, because Christian Petrarca in the midfield is an absolute bull. He's going to win the footy. That, like I said, Pickett comes out of nowhere and looks to be an absolute monster up front. This Melbourne Demons team is looking a little scary, but here's the caveat the other way.
Mm.
Sydney is, I mean, St. Kilda is absolutely devastated with
Of
injury
course.
or suspension. Brad Crouch has been out. The move that one of the guys they got from Adelaide in the free agency period, he's been suspended for the first 2 weeks. He comes back this week. Paddy Ryder, who hadn't seen his family because of COVID, has been out for personal reasons to see family. He should
Hmm.
be back in the next couple of weeks. So for me, this is a St. Kilda team that the St. Kilda team Melbourne just beat is not the St. Kilda team of last year that was a finals team
Yeah.
that won that game against the Doggies. So I'm gonna hold back a little bit on my expectations of the Saints because I think once they get those injured guys back and the suspended guys back, this is a fine this the talent on this roster, St. Kilda is a finals team. The question is, will they play like that? Because this loss hurts early in the year.
Of
Again,
course.
2 rounds in,
Hmm.
plenty.
Pitch
There's,
of
I mean, there's
salt.
still 21
Yeah.
rounds of football left. So
I'm
plenty
right
of
there.
rounds.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Donnie. I do not like the last thing you want to do is write out this St. Kilda Saints team because for all the reasons you mentioned, I don't think it was necessarily a bad performance by them. It was a Demons taking advantage of a hurt team, and it's a good Demons football team, and that's really about it. And now taking a page kind of from my fantastic analysis about the Port Adelaide and Essendon game, here we go. Gold Coast versus North Melbourne. Donnie, Gold Coast good. North
Mm-hmm.
Melbourne really bad. You want to take a guess on how this game goes because we get a whopping grand total of 39 points from your ruse. I mean, Gold Coast leading the game the entire time. It handled on virtually every stat line. It's it's just like kind of picking on the short kid or something like a basketball game. It's just not going to happen.
The crazy part about it is that it would have been the complete reverse about 3 years ago. So it's really kind of crazy how far North Melbourne have fallen, and Gold Coast for many people that are not living in Australia, the Gold Coast is kind of the pit for athletic teams in Australia. Most Gold Coast teams have not succeeded, not in rugby, not in netball, not in nothing. This footy team has been really, really backed by the AFL because they want to get a team in Gold Coast to be able to get into the Gold Coast market. This is a market that has a ton of people, but it's not exactly a sports haven. So it's really interesting to see North Melbourne, a team in football mad Victoria, be absolutely atrocious, and a Gold Coast sports writer say this is an uncompetitive team that's literally wasting the AFL's time even getting on the field. And
Jeez.
it's like, that's how sad this is that a Gold Coast sports writer says this, and even Victorian reporters are going, he's right. And that's kind of sad that this very proud North Melbourne club is putting an abysmal team on the field. And this is, I mean, I've even heard some people say they don't think they're going to win a game this year. And I hope they're wrong. I really do. But unfortunately, this year Spooners could potentially go have an offer in the Detroit Lions and join the illustrious group. I don't know if illustrious would be the correct
No,
word there.
I'll call it
Of the
illustrious,
no
Donnie,
win, yeah.
because a perfect season is a perfect season. You may not be hoping for it, but hey, I love it when the our NFL teams, the Detroit Lions, did it. Love it more recently when the Cleveland Browns did it, and that's sitting through a parade for going 0-16. God bless those fans. North Melbourne, let's go. Let's go over. Okay, shall we see it? Let's because what's more memorable, one win or two win season, or winning zero games? I know it's really not that bad. It's not a good
Depends on
bad.
what your
It's
depends on whether you want to celebrate one win or if you want to celebrate no wins.
hey, I think honestly, I think if we're going to be that bad, you might as well just embrace the bad with that one. And speaking of bad, let's talk about Hawthorn. As they took on Richmond, and we all knew exactly how this game was going to go. Hawthorn 7-7-49, Richmond 11-12-78. It was a good team. They beat one of the more bad teams of the league, and it felt almost like it felt almost lackluster from Richmond. And I believe it's not that Richmond played a bad game of footy. They didn't. They obviously were not playing their best game. Let's make that clear. But I bashed on Hawthorn, but they did a way better job. They exceeded my at least my expectations. It seemed like a lot of footy fans' expectations with this one, and they were able to hold their ground more than maybe we were giving them credit for. So while though it was a loss, I want to give them a respect for showing up and trying to play tough against one of the favorites for the premiership this year.
Yeah, it's this is one of those games where it's like I'm. You look at the scoreboard and you're almost like, whoa, Richmond didn't really play a great game. But I kind
Mm-hmm.
of agree with you. I don't think they ever really got out of second gear in this game. I think
Yeah.
Richmond kind of they did enough to win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give maybe wasted, but I'm gonna give Clarko a little bit of credit that I think he kind of he finds ways to do things a little bit that I think maybe he pulled something, maybe pulled the little rabbit and kept this Richmond team from scoring
Mm-hmm.
150 on them, which they could have if they really wanted to. So I don't know. This is one of those games I just go, well, Richmond won the game. Really didn't have to try too hard. Well, let's move on. I mean, there's really not much to say. I mean, Dusty has another great game, but he didn't even really have to be that great
Nope.
to beat this Hawthorn team that I think is kind of I their decisions are now coming to roost a little bit, unfortunately.
Well, roost, hawk, eggs. Ooh, Donnie's on point with the puns today, intentional or not. And let's go from that game, like you say. Let's just move on. Let's go with Donnie's advice on that one, and let's move on into at least my pick for the best game of the round. I am going to give it to the Bulldogs versus the Eagles. I see you, Coach, nodding your head in agreement with me, which is always making me feel like I know what the hell I'm talking about sometimes. The Bulldogs, they take this one 14-16 100. The Eagles fall just a little short in this one 14-9 93 in a very, very exciting back and forth, closely contested, hard fought footy game. And it's the Bulldogs midfield. This highly like a lot of excitement, a lot of build up, and lot of hype around this midfield going into the season for the doggies. And they had a good round, although arguably lackluster, as we talked about last round. Arguably a lackluster round from that midfield. They build on that. They had another really solid all-around game out of that midfield. Jack Mcrae with he might be an underrated name on that midfield with all the like the high level names, like your True Lords and stuff like that. People might be overlooking Jack, but maybe we shouldn't anymore. 41 disposals involved in 14 scoring plays. You had that Bulldogs team with about a 100 disposal margin. They had 406 on this game. They led the inside 50s, the clearances, and of course the disposal efficiency. That midfield looked real good this year, and it looks like that midfield that we were expecting them to be.
Definitely for sure. When this was just a back and forth footy game. Like I thoroughly enjoyed watching this game because as soon as West Coast would take a little bit of a
Mm-hmm.
lead, Western would fire back. As soon
Yep.
as Western would get comfortable with a 12-point lead, the West Coast Eagles would come back. I mean, the Eagles are still a good team. Like I
Yes.
think
Yes.
this is an Eagles team that the best part for them is they get 9 games in Perth and they
Mm-hmm.
should win most of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just can they go on the road and win games? And unfortunately, sometimes for West Coast, they just have not always been solid enough when they go to Victoria. So we will see. But this was a really good performance. I still don't think this West Coast Eagles team is fully back to where they need to be. Again, Elliot Yo is out
Mm-hmm.
indefinitely for right now. Shuey's been fighting injuries. Gaff still isn't fully up to where I think he needs to be. So the crazy part about it is this doggies team wins this game, but I don't think the Eagles are full strength yet, which
Yeah.
is kind of interesting to say that this Eagles team could get better, which is kind of scary for the competition because they're already tough enough to play as it is, even with the roster that they have, and they're missing guys. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The dogs with a good win. This dogs team is going to be they're going to be in the 8. I can almost guarantee it, unless they have
Mm-hmm.
just an atrocious run of
Yeah.
injuries because they're just so talented in the midfield. And again, the young kid Jamaro Ugle-Hagan, they're letting him marinate down in
One
the
of the best
VFL,
names.
which is absolutely great for them, because when you bring this kid in, he's going to be cherry ripe. He's going to be
Hmm.
ready to go. I'm thoroughly looking forward to this full flying Western Bulldogs team here in the next few rounds.
Yeah, and like you said, Donnie, this Eagles team, I was hot on them preseason. I'm going to stay with them because they're not full strength, and there's still some positives you can take away from this game. One of the things I want to look at is their tackling. Their tackling was really solid. They were wrapping guys up. They were securing it. They weren't just missing like you see a lot of teams do sometimes. They were really solid on that end. And then also you still got your man Josh Kennedy, 4 goals in this one. He led the game in terms of goal scoring. You had the Bulldogs. I mean, they had a number of 3 goal scorers, which of course, I rather have three goal scorers than 1 4 goal scorer. But there's bright sides to take away from this. The Eagles are not done here. The West Coast is still going to be a good team, and they look fine through the first couple of rounds. It's just a really good Bulldogs team that you played within almost just within 7 points. That's nothing bad right there. Woo, Donnie. All right, let's rip the band-aid off with this one because we get to talk about the last game. Shout out to Dr. Man because I gave him his credit over on Twitter because we had Frio, we had Greater Western Sydney, and we had a absolutely completely devastated team from injuries in Fremantle. I'm just, at least from my perspective, I might just be a negative bias on this one, but they embarrass the Giants in this game because what I liked, I guess what you want to call it is they they effectively used controlled chaos in this one. Fremantle did. I think that's the best way to really describe what they did on that footy field because I had no idea what was going on that whole game. I don't think Fremantle had an idea what was going on in that game, but they were making it work because the Giants couldn't catch a mark to save a life. They couldn't make a clean disposal on their end. They couldn't get any interceptions defensively. And the GWS just never got going in this one. You had more problems with kicking accuracy. I mean, I guess if we want to talk bright spots with this one, let's be positive. We're going to be positive at the end of the day. Toby Green, he's still looking pretty good here. 2 goals, a few behinds. There's 20 disposals. And then what I really like, it might not have shown up on the stat sheet here, Donnie, but Bobby Hill, he was hustling his butt off this game. He might not have been making the tackles, but he was chasing guys down. He was pressuring the hell out of these guys. He was getting close to plays where he was like 30 meters away from his what it seemed like. This guy was all over that field. So I love what I saw from him, and Toby Green can still get things rolling as we progress into the season.
I mean, this game was one of those is that I was just like, this is going to be quite an interesting game because you
Mm-hmm.
have a GWS team that I think the expectations were quite mixed. Some people had them as still potentially in the finals. There were some people that were like, this is a team that's going to fall further back. So I've I'm still sitting on the fence with this team because there's so much talent on this GWS team. But
Mm-hmm.
to go off kind of your conversation that you guys were talking about was the fact is that they fall short in this game, and I'm seeing a lot more people starting to comment is does Cameron is his seat getting hotter? And
Well,
and
can I
and I
ask you that question, Donnie? Because I was wanting to lead into this, so I'm glad you're able to take it
Mhm.
upon yourself. But we have to ask a question now. I know we're 2 games in, but is it time for Leon Cameron to go? He only has about a 54.5 winning percentage ever since he took over as head coach since 2014. And the problem is, like, I mean, looking back last year and now this, it really seems like this is a team that has a lot of talent, a lot of potential, but there's been no change in the level of play. They're still making the same mistakes they were making all last season, this season, and that's something that kind of falls onto the coaching. I feel like. So, what do you think? What do you make of this?
it's an avid argument. For me, I kind of look at it as this: is that if you go back, if you last year was nuts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put a ton into the coaching because everything was just, nothing was normal.
Yeah.
If you go from the seasons before,
Mm-hmm.
a grand final loss, a preliminary finals loss, so he's had some success, but I
Mm-hmm.
think the issue that Leon Cameron runs into now is that, and this has been the argument by a lot of GWS haters, and I'm not trying to say this to jump on that particular bandwagon, but there's some merit to it in this argument,
Mm-hmm.
is that I think GWS got so much talent from the AFL due to concessions because they were a new team. They wanted them to be successful. They
Yeah.
wanted a second team in New South Wales. Then I think Leon Cameron was put in a situation where he had to coddle kids to keep superstar talent in GWS, that they didn't learn the gritty side of football. They didn't learn the hardworking side of football. And this is the year it bites them because they play like superstars. They don't give the efforts when necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And that falls on the coach for not coaching it out of them. Jeremy Cameron leaves. Okay. Yes. But there's still so much talent on this team.
Yeah.
Even minus the guys that they lost, they should still be a really good footy team. Like I think even minus what they had, they were still a potential for a finals position.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have them in, but I would have, if you fully laddered it, I'd
Mm-hmm.
have probably had them between ninth and 12th
Yeah.
because I thought they had that much talent. As I saw in that game, there was no effort and desire. I mean, you could almost argue, if you look at the behinds for Fremantle, that game should have been much uglier than it already was.
It should have been
So
150, to
oh yeah,
50, man.
22 behinds. The goal kicking was atrocious for
It should have
Fremantle,
been what happened in
unfortunately.
that 2019 grand final that you alluded to. It should have been that 114
Hmm.
to 25.
Yep.
Oh,
And
that,
that's kind of,
man.
the thing that I see is like I kind of agree with you. I think Leon Cameron may escape this season, but I believe he sees his walking papers after this year unless he gets this team on a roll and maybe gets them. I mean, if he doesn't make the finals, he's got to finish ninth or 10th if he wants to keep his job. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, I see him potentially being one of the first coaches that finds himself on the unemployment line because it's with the talent that they have, the effort and the results are not what they should be. And that's just plain fact.
If I had to take a guess right now, I am saying that he, I think there's a really good chance that we go that GWS starts this thing off. Let's call that's another 5. So they might start this season off 0-7. Leon
Mm-hmm.
Cameron is going to be out by mid-season without a doubt in my mind because let's look at the next 5 games for or the next 6 games for the Giants. Melbourne, Collingwood, Sydney, Bulldogs, Adelaide, and then you get Essendon, which might be a more competitive game than I want to admit at this point. It's really not looking good for the Giants. It's the 0-2 thing. Bringing that back, I hate it because I want to be a good supporter of this team. Damn it, I'm not gonna ditch them, but at the same time, it's over for GWS. I just hope they have a good season so I could enjoy at least a couple games to watch, and without ripping my hair out. But Leon Cameron, he's out of here. He is so out. He might not even make it to midseason.
Oh, that is a murderer's row early
Yeah.
part of the season, and
Right. Why the
unfortunately,
why? Who in the hell pissed off the AFL scheduling committee to give them this stretch of games to start off the season? Come on, man.
well,
uh,
it's a little bit of what you get to because the way they schedule it is the teams that are in your kind of trajectory, your section of the ladder is who you play twice because they want you playing teams that they deem in your area.
yeah.
It's the reason why I look at Sydney's schedule this year. It falls really well for them because you're going to get 2 games potentially against North Melbourne. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
get 2 games against Essendon. So there may be towards the end of the season a little bit, maybe even some doubt cast on Sydney because if they win the games they should win, they may make the finals more is because of who they played
Mm-hmm.
more than on who they beat, because they may have may have 3 or 4 wins over teams that, I mean, are 17th, 18th, and have one win the entire season. So that's kind of where I think GWS, unfortunately, where they finished last year, just outside the 8, they're still in that realmish area of the ladder where you're playing some of the better teams in the league. So I think that's kind of I don't think that they ticked off the scheduling makers. I
Yeah,
just think
it's
where
gotten
they
lucky,
finished
huh?
last year compared to the team they've got this year,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not, it's not even close.
No.
It's not the same.
Was Jeremy Cameron that big of a key? Yeah, probably. He's pretty damn good at what he does, so you could make that argument there. Thank God for North Melbourne. Thank God for Essendon, because at least they're not going to get the spoon. That's all I gotta say at
Oh
this point.
boy.
That's it hurts. And with that being said, that's going to wrap it for all of our breakdowns for round 2 action, and we're going to roll into my round 3 power rankings. Donnie, you'll probably have yours maybe after going to round 6. Maybe you could join me on this one, but for now it's just me because, like Donnie said last round, he does not like to do this early. I can respect that, but at the same time, I say bump that. We're going to do it because I want to.
That's
Maybe not.
fine. I have no problem with that.
But
Everybody to
he's just
each
not a
their
part of
own.
this. Donnie, you're not a part of this.
Hey,
So.
I respected what you're doing. I have Senior 5. I just saw it earlier today. I got to say I'm a little surprised, but
It's okay.
I'm interested to see your explanation on this.
I can do that for you because, of course, you are got a sync Pete. If you are participating over in the conversation on our socials, you can go follow our Instagram at Fourth Long Radio and our Twitter at Fourth Long Radio and our Instagram at Fourth and Long Radio, where I put out the power rankings before we put out the show, so you can go check that out and get your early taste of that, and be a part of the conversation over on those platforms as well. But starting off at number 5, we're going to have a team that we were talking a little high on earlier in this show, and they are currently number 4 on the ladder. It is going to be your Melbourne Demons, because although they take advantage of a weak team, of a weakened team in St. Kilda, they're still looking really good on their own. And I don't want to say I'm all in on this team, but I am really close to being all in on this team. Just from what I see, if they keep this up through rounds 3 and 4, maybe even 5, I am really excited about this. And you'll see, the top 5 is my power rankings are essentially the top 5 of the ladder, except with the little spot changing in this one. Going to number 4, we're going to have the midfield buzzsaw that is your Western Bulldogs. These doggies are looking great, and what I've seen from round 1 and round 2 is nothing but improvement. And that can spell disaster for any of these other top teams, either trying to claw their way up higher in the top 8 or even trying to make it into the top 8 themselves. If you run through the Bulldogs, you're gonna get cut up by this midfield team. So I like where they are right there. And one of the bigger surprises, I would say, is that this team last week after round 1, they were going to round 2, they were the top team on my power rankings. Richmond, after a disappointing, I mean, we didn't say disappointing, maybe not disappointing, but a lackluster, going back to how I described them, a lackluster performance against Hawthorn. A team, Donnie, like you said, they should have beat up on this team. They could have put 150 on this. It should have been that 2019 grand final all over again. But it wasn't. It wasn't. And it should have been. And so we already kind of expressed our disappointment in this game. So that's why they fall here, is because it also didn't help that these two teams above them looked great this round. Number 2, it's none other than Port Adelaide. They are not number 1 this round. Man, I don't know what to say. I love this team. I love the hell out of this team. But my one concern is that who they beat. They've beat the 2 worst teams in the league so far. They've beat up on Essendon. They've beat up on North Melbourne. While they did what they were supposed to do, it's hard because I'm kind of punishing them in a way for being scheduled against bad teams. But that's just the way it goes, because the number 1 team is none other than your Sydney Swans. Coach Donny has his best team in here. I feel like you got a little smile when you saw this because this is a team. I'm still going to roll with it, damn it. I said they're going to make the finals. They're going to make one of the biggest jumps this year. And they keep on proving right through 2 rounds, which I'm thrilled about. And they beat 2 really good teams like Port Adelaide. They beat 2 really bad teams. Sydney beats 2 really good teams in Brisbane and Adelaide in back-to-back weeks. And although you can make the argument that they should have lost in round 2 given all the behinds that Adelaide was kicking, they didn't. And they could have helped force that. Sydney, number 1. Your thoughts on this, Donnie?
It's a very interesting group. It's you're splitting hairs, unfortunately, with this because
I mean, I have like 2 rounds to work with.
Early.
You're going to split hairs.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to split hairs. You could make all your arguments are completely valid. I have no super massive arguments like why would you do that, because I think the D's grinded their way into a couple of wins. I like them at 5. They're 2-0. They've played really well. Richmond at 3, that makes sense, dropping from 1 because they played a Hawthorn team that you should roll pretty easily, and they really didn't. Especially they kind of exactly. And then you got to say when Sydney, the reason they're number 1, I mean, they're one of the highest scoring teams. They've scored 121 and 125. So I mean, it's hard to argue that they are not an elite. Now, have they played the toughest defenses in the entire league? No. So we'll have to see. But if you're just going off the first 2 games, it's hard to argue that your 5 isn't difficult. If so, you have no super extraneous arguments from me in here. I will probably have my first one after round 5, and we're going into round 6. I will have my first one.
I am super excited to see that finally.
Yep, that I like getting those the 5 game set because it shows momentum and form a little bit. So the first one will come going into round 6. I will have my first one here, but I'm enjoying that you're getting into this. Like I said, I have no arguments on your 5, and it's not because Sydney has won. I don't see where there's a ton of argument where I could go, well, what about this team? Your 5 is pretty good. I
appreciate that, Donnie. There we go. So, if you want to argue with me, please do. I'm more than happy to have a conversation about this because that's one of the best parts about this is I get to have my conversation with Donnie on the show, and then I get to go have my conversations with you guys once we're done here, once you listen to it. So make sure, like I said, Twitter, Instagram, go check us out, or in the YouTube comments as well, or even better, leave a 5-star Apple review on Apple Podcasts about your top 5 and who you got there. And we're going to roll into our last segment here with our round 3 tips. We're going to be starting off round 3 with a really good game. And like we're saying, this is, maybe Donnie, you were saying, oh yeah, this is probably a must win. I was over here saying, you bet your behind. This is a must win for the Brisbane Lions. They're taking on Collingwood in this one. Who you got, Donnie?
I'm gonna go with the Pies in this one. I think, I originally made this tip before the whole Queensland thing kind of even broke even more. I like the way Collingwood played against Carlton. I think they kind of got their mojo back, and I think Brisbane is ripe right now for scoring on them. They just their defense has not been what it was last year. Harris Andrews has played really well, but I think some of the injuries has kind of thrown their lineup a little bit. Yeah. And unfortunately, Oscar McInerney rolling his ankle is not going to help them much. Having Brody Grundy to go up with this week, so I'm going to go with the Pies on this one. But I don't see this as a massive blowout. I see this 2 goals or less, just because I think Brisbane's got a ton of talent. They're going to keep in this game. I think Collingwood's just enough firepower with DeGoey, Cox, and some of their forward players. I think they're going to just do enough. So I'm going to go with the Pies in this one.
I have to take you to, you made a lot of great points there. And one of the ones, it seems like Brisbane, they're probably going to be a little rattled, not just from this bad robbery that they suffered in round 2, but also the whole relocation and everything going on with the whole COVID stuff. And this is already a team that's reeling. This is a Collingwood team that's thriving at this point. So it's just not a good matchup, not good timing on this one for Brisbane. I'm going to go with Mason Cox's Magpies as well. Yeah, I'm going to get so much hate for keep on talking Mason Cox like this. Even from the Collingwood fans, they're going to be like, "Dude, shut up." I
He
love it
is
though.
a polarizing individual for sure.
And that's what I've gone to as a host. So hey, we're right there. Now the next game, Donnie, we're going to have a really easy one here because we got North Melbourne versus the Bulldogs. And why is Melbourne going to win this one?
I'm gonna go with the Bulldogs in this one because
Real bold of you
to
there.
to quote a person that I know real well, good
Uh-huh.
team versus bad team.
That person you know
And
must be really like into this footy stuff and be a genius. He
oh
seems so.
yes, just an incredible mind. I mean, just an incredible mind. Nah, I
Uh,
just the
oh,
Brisbane. This is
doggies.
this is a practice game for the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs could take half their regular starters out, play some of their kids, and they'd still probably win this one by 35. So I'm gonna go with the Western Bulldogs in this one. Bont gets 40 touches. I think Naughton kicks 4.
Hmm.
I'd be interested to see if maybe even Bevo pulls the trigger and lets Jamario Lahagan play in this game, just to let the young kid eat up on a very weakened Ruse team.
If you're going to give him in, you might as well give him against this North Melbourne team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doggies. It's not close. It's going to be like 50 points at least. The next one, this game probably has a really good chance of stealing for the match of the round, in my belief, in this one, with Adelaide and Gold Coast. Gold Coast and all. Actually, I'm going to say, I was saying 10 last week. I'm going to give the Gold Coast. You probably gained a few fans. I'm saying all 15 of those Gold Coast fans now, they're going to be playing against a good Adelaide team, an Adelaide team that they're looking at their game against Sydney, but hey, boys, we should have won this one. And you could easily make the argument there, like we talked about. I still really like the firepower of this Adelaide team. I still like Taylor Walker in this one. It's going to be a close one, but Donnie, I gotta say that Adelaide pulls this off against the Gold Coast.
I don't think it's a pull off. I think the Crows have
Mm.
really kind of capitalized on the new man on the mark role. I think
Mm-hmm.
they're playing really good footy. I think Gold Coast kind of capitalized on a weakened North Melbourne team. I really want to see this. The fact that it's going to be at the Adelaide Oval, I'm gonna give the Crows this one, but I think
Mm-hmm.
this one's tight. I agree with you. This could be a match of the round potential if it stays as close as I think it could be. I'm gonna go with the Crows as well.
And now let's roll into probably the favorite of the game that's going to take match of the round, and let's go to a huge prove it game for both of these teams. Two and O teams. Someone's O has got to go, and that's going to be between the Richmond Tigers and the Sydney Swans. Donnie, put you on the spot on this one, I guess. Who are you taking?
Oh man, this
Oh,
one's
this is
hard for
huge.
this one is so hard for me
Yeah.
because I look at it and I go Richmond coming off an okay win over Hawthorn, probably a game you should probably win relatively easy. Sydney comes off a game against a good Crows team, nice win. I'm gonna say this, and this is me being as straight arrow as I can when it comes to my coaching hat.
Mm-hmm.
Richmond MCG, so hard to beat them there. This is going to be a very raucous crowd. It's going to be a lot of people. The youngsters need to respond in this one. I'm just not sure they have enough. I'm gonna tip Richmond
Mm-hmm.
only because, and I say it this way, it's kind of the same with Brisbane, is that it's not that I doubt Sydney can't win it. I think Sydney can win this. I just I'm a little bit more confident with the experience of Richmond than I
Yes.
am Sydney, but I will put this massive one out there. This will not surprise me if Sydney wins this because I think Sydney's style of play that they've played in these first two
Mm-hmm.
rounds can find holes in this Richmond defense, especially if Buddy plays. Now, small little tidbit here. There is talk Buddy might not play because he will be managed a lot this year. So
Mm-hmm.
he may not play. There's still a lot up in the air. We'll
Gotta
probably
play
won't
him
even
in this
find
one.
out to the day before. I agree, especially considering I think their next matchup after that isn't a massively difficult one. And when you play a Richmond team, you need yourself at
No, it's
absolute
the
peak.
opposite of massive.
Here,
It's
here,
it's
here,
Essendon.
here, and it is ascendant. So that's why I would come, and for me, that's what I would, if I was in Longmire's position, I would play him this week. I'd give him the week off against Essendon because you probably win that even without him. So yeah, I would play him
Probably.
this week and then see how he pulls up. Like I said, I'm going to tip Richmond.
Hmm.
Swans fans, I think it's possible. I really, really do the way this team is playing, but we'll have to see. I mean, there's so many variables. This is they're going on the road in an even tougher environment than the GABA. The GABA's tough, but I think the MCG and Richmond and the
Hmm.
Richmond Army is a tough place to play.
Yep.
I'm going to go Richmond only because of experience more than anything.
Right now, if you're Sydney, it's almost looking like everything is working against you in this game. You have a more experienced team. You have a team with a lot of momentum. I mean, they're the defending grand finalists. Okay, it's at their place with a great crowd. They have more experience, and that is why Sydney is going to take this game, Donnie. Because yeah, why don't you up there? Weren't expecting that one. I am taking the underdogs in this one because I'm staying loyal. I mean, hey, I'm just gonna say, am I? I'm, I'm not. In no way am I ditching GWS. They're still my team, but another Sydney team. It's my guys, Coach Hess's team. Sydney wins. I think I'll be happy there too. And please, I deserve at least a little bit of happiness in just my second season, really, of rooting for this. I don't want to be stuck with only GWS. No offense, guys, but it's just not fun. But Sydney, they're the young guys, and like you were saying, Donnie, they have all the ability to take advantage of this Richmond defense. I mean, if Sydney's able to play some clean footy, if they're able to limit the turnovers, like I know they can, they're going to be able to help keep Richmond off the board and keep the pressure on them this whole game. And it's these young guys that might be the way to kind of edge out, Dusty and his playing. It's his young guns, it's his speed, and what I love from Sydney is what we saw in round one against Brisbane. They have so much determination and just pure drive to win this game. And it's almost like Sydney is playing with one of the biggest chip on their shoulders I think I've seen out of a lot of these footy teams. And so, what better way to, while everything's going against you, what better way to take on the defending champs and beat them in their own place? I like Sydney in this one, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people in this round.
I like I said, it will not shock me a bit if they pull this one out. But like I said, as diehard as I am, I am a realist when it comes to it. That this Richmond team, until you cut the head off the proverbial snake,
Yep.
it's not dead yet. So
No,
we,
no,
we will
and like
see.
I say, Sydney's going to win. It's going to be one of the closest games of the round, possibly. It might be in like another one of those one pointers. That
Hmm.
would not surprise me in the least. But what
Hmm.
would surprise me is that if St Kilda and Essendon ended with just a 1 point margin on this one, St Kilda, while injured, I mean it's Essendon. And until Essendon actually shows a pulse, I'm gonna take any team that they're playing. Give me St Kilda all day.
I'm gonna go St. Kilda too. I think this is a little bit closer. Like I said, St. Kilda is still a little bit of the walking wounded here, but I
Mm-hmm.
think they've just got a little too much talent in the right places to be able to take down the Bombers. Give me the Saints as well.
Now we get into Port Adelaide's first real test of the season. They're playing a rock solid West Coast team, and this is kind of a tough one for me because I mean Port Adelaide isn't really battle hardened. They beat up on two bad teams like we talked about. West Coast they win the game, then they lose the game to one of the teams that's in the top three or the top four at this point. So that's not a bad loss by any stretch of the imagination. They're definitely more battle hardened than Port Adelaide at this point. But one thing that worries me is that even though Port Adelaide hasn't really played talent, they're still looking really good in their own right. And at the very least, they have all the confidence and momentum in the world, and that's kind of why I'm going to roll with this one in this game.
Okay, so for me, I look at it like this: is that there's a couple of factors that I'm going to look into it and make my determination. Is who's playing the best footy right now? Well, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to say Port isn't. Now, again, Port's played a couple of lackluster teams, shall we say. West Coast had to travel and had a really tough physical game with the Western Bulldogs, came up a little bit short. So on form, Port Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's being played out west in Optus Stadium, and West Coast is always so tough at home.
Yep.
I would lean West Coast. Now it's the intangibles. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Older team traveling to and fro. That's never a good sign. West Coast has a lot of older players. Port has a lot of younger players. I'm going to go Port on this one. I think this is a semi upset because normally West Coast is absolutely so difficult to beat
Yes.
out west. But this Port team hasn't had to travel as much. They've had 2 home games. This is a short little travel to Perth, okay? Not as big a travel as to Victoria and back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give Port this one. I think Port has a ton of confidence going in. I'm a momentum type of person. I think positive momentum is always better to have than negative.
Yep.
And West Coast just lost.
Mm-hmm.
They underperformed. They didn't play as well. Gaff's not playing as well. They've got some injuries still in some of the places. Nick Nett knew he's kind of on and off. Darling and Kennedy have been playing really well. Oscar Allen's been playing really well, but it's just like I'm just not sure if they have all of the guns to be able to keep this exciting, fast, quick, and better Port team than they were last year. Orazio Fantasia it could be one of the best pickups in the entire AFL this year if he
Mm-hmm.
continues his form the way he's playing. Alir gives them a big body for defender to guard into the gaps for this West Coast team. So I'm going to take Port in this one. I think it's close. I
Yeah.
think it's less than 2 goals. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is another one. There's 3 games in the last 4 that I think could be potentially a game of the round nominee for this round. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
good games in this one.
And I'd be willing to bet those that the last 3 games of the round don't really have much of a chance to really contend for match of the round. We have
Unless you get a crazy result, which you never know.
exactly. That's why you love footy. You never know.
Especially this next one.
But we have Fremantle possibly getting a bit of a revenge game from, you remember that whole controversial finish against the Blues back in 2020. Feels like forever ago, but it's still fresh in my mind, at least, because that was one of the first really controversial things I've ever seen. And it took me a bit to understand it, but our friend of the show, Dr. Man, was able to help me out with that one, be able to show me all that stuff. But we have the Blues and we have the Dockers in this one. A battle of two pretty injured teams at this point. Can we get injury bull in this one? But who's taking this one?
Um, Again, normally the travel always helps me a little bit.
Yeah.
Carlton playing at home and Marvel Stadium being a home game. I'm gonna go the Dockers on this one. I,
Mm.
I think I think the 2 new injuries of Jack Martin and Fisher, both going down in this game against Collingwood.
Mm-hmm.
Carlton's defense has just not been very good. They made a Collingwood team that did not play very good offense against the Western Bulldogs look absolutely unstoppable. Maybe Jordan DeGoey had a little bit to do with it. I don't think Frio has that, but I think Frio is just they're this tough, hardened team. I think they band around the fact they don't have Nat Fife in this one. I think there's a possibility Sonny Walters could be back, which gives them a little bit of firepower up front.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go the Dockers in this one. A tiny bit of an upset. Most people would probably go Carlton with this one. I'm going to tip the Dockers on this one.
It's tough. It's a really tough one. I just going with who I feel is less injured and still better. And that's why I hate to disagree with you because you're right most of the time, Donnie. But I'm
Mhm.
kind of feeling it with the Blues in this one. There's nothing specific I can really put down as to why Carlton is going to take it. It's just one of those games where it's going to be really close. It's probably more likely just going to be like a battle of like attrition in this one. I think
Mhm.
it's going to come down to who can make the least amount of mistakes, and I kind of like Carlton in this one, so I'm going to take them. I would not be surprised if Frio gets it though.
No, I struggled with this one.
Yeah.
This one was tough. It was
Well,
just
this one and the
these
Richmond and
latest
Sydney
in
one, probably the two hardest ones to pick, in my opinion,
yeah,
this round.
and the latest injuries for me is what tipped it over for me because
Mm-hmm.
I thought there for a while that I was going to probably go Carlton, and I actually had Carlton for the longest period of time, but Fisher and Martin going down, there's a little bit of the
Yeah,
offensive ability for Carlton now
of course.
gone. I think it really balances these two teams out. I think Frio kind of played that game of the defensive style that they get kind of get you out the back, almost like a counterattack in soccer. And I
Mm.
think that's what they're probably going to try to have to do. And Carlton's defense has just not been very solid. Wiedering's been about the only thing that's been really good. Sod's been nice, but I think Sod sometimes runs himself into trouble if he turns the ball over. He's way out of position. Um, like I said, you're not wrong for going with Carlton at
Yeah.
all. Like I said, if this is it's a 55-45 game for me. That's literally how close. I mean, I forget it. I'd even go 51-49.
See,
That's how close this one is for me.
a game that is not going to be close, so is the second to last one of the round, and that is the Melbourne Demons against the GWS Giants, and it's going to be the Demons, and it's going to be the Demons by a lot in this one, and that's all I gotta say.
I'm not going to disagree with you. We will save the GWS pain train and we will go with Melbourne. I think Melbourne's playing a really good footy right now.
Yeah.
So I will go with Melbourne as well.
Last one of the round is going to be the Geelong Cats and Hawthorn, and I know Geelong is only like 1-1. I know they haven't looked the best, but come on, man, they're winning this one. At least they have
Yeah,
to. They have to.
it's hard not to see Geelong not win this one. I think Hawthorn, as good as Clarko is, Hawthorn Geelong just has so many weapons. Even with some of the guys out, they've got
Yeah.
so many weapons, so much skill. I think Geelong gets it done. They kind of right the ship a little bit more. Get that second win under their belt. Get the positive momentum going with Dangerfield coming back here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to go with Cats as well.
There we go. Round three tips. I will say, personal bias, I think I'm gonna be more right on this. But if you're going professionally, yeah, if you're going to bet on this one, go with what Donnie has to say. He he's a little more thought on this one. He's a little more what'd you say, strategic? You want to say strategic? I think that might be the best way to go. But
I
ladies
don't
and
know about
gentlemen,
strategic. I play the numbers sometimes.
play numbers.
I also play trends.
Donnie
I
counts cards. It's confirmed.
I don't know about that, but no, I don't always go with my heart. Sometimes I go practically as much as I can. I mean, I know there's going to be a game one time this season. I'm going to go with Sydney. That's probably an obvious one that they probably shouldn't win. So I'll do it. But this is just one of those
There we go.
I can't unsee the fact that Richmond is just such a good team. But
See, you
that is
won't.
going to be so much fun to watch.
Oh yeah. See, that's what a lot of things on the show, Donnie. You won't do them. So that's the things I will do. I am willing to cross that line. So we got the yin and yang going right now. We got this. We got the well thought out and an articulate one, and then you got the one that is kind of says, I kind of like this. I'm gonna go for it.
You're the coin flip guy.
Oh, hey, they make prop bets on coin flips, so I'm not the only one here. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it for our round two breakdown of all the footy stuff that you need to know. Please let us know what your thoughts about round two were on any of the platforms that we talked about, whether it be the socials, YouTube, or on Apple Podcasts by leaving a 5-star review. Let us know what your power rankings look like and your pick for match of the round for round three. Would love to see which one you guys are looking forward to the most. Really appreciate you all really getting some good views on our preview show, on our round one show, this one as well. Donnie, please make sure to have everyone keep checking out if they haven't yet, your AFL, your American AFL interviews. Fantastic stuff for all teams besides Gold Coast. If you're a Gold Coast fan, all 15 of them now, please let Donnie know. Maybe there's 2 of them that are in America out of those 15, so that'd be nice. Just reach out to us and make sure to keep an eye out on his AFLW breakdowns that he's been doing, because it's time for the finals, isn't it?
Yep, we got the finals starting this week. We got the play-in games basically for the final four. The the preliminary finals will come up next week. We got the quarterfinals coming in with some dynamite matchups: North facing Collingwood and Frio playing Melbourne. Frio, last year's undefeated team,
Hmm.
in the play-in game. Could be quite an interesting final. I just recorded yesterday with my buddy Sam Jordan for this episode, and we go through the entire finals, who we like, who we see raising the flag. I cannot wait for you to hear that episode. It was a blast to have a chat. We will probably not do an episode next week just because we've only got two games to go over. We will probably do one episode for the semifinal, for probably the grand final as well. We'll probably let a couple, we'll kind of see how that kind of goes. But the AFLW season, if you get a chance, please watch these games because these ladies are playing some spectacular footy.
And that is going to wrap it for us. A quick one last thank you, because I can't thank you guys enough. And thank you too. Now, at least on the audio platforms, 18% of you guys are from Australia. I think if you're watching a video from YouTube, about 50, close to 50% is Australian. So I love my mates from down under. You guys really do make everything rock. But I can't wait for round 3. There's some really good stuff going down. A lot of storylines that come out, and I cannot wait to talk once again next week. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the hell out of round 3 and have a good rest of your day, night, whenever you listen to this. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next one.